Just ready? All right. Thanks. Afternoon, everyone. Going to talk about Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes and showing how they can peacefully coexist. My name is Jeff Hobbs. I'm Director of Engineering at SUSE. So the common problem that we see is that people view Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes as mutually exclusive options. It's an or decision. You have Kubernetes, container as a service, basically production-grade container orchestration. That's its tagline. There are lots of primitives. Containers are the workload unit. Cloud Foundry, platform as a service. So very much focused around cloud-native application management. Opinionated design. Some people don't agree with all the opinions, but it's cloud-native, very cloud-native focused. Applications and services. Applications are the workload unit. Containers are just an implementation detail. So people are probably familiar with this particular diagram, borrowed this off the internet. And when you look at it, oh, Kubernetes or Cloud Foundry, and they see CAS, and then they see PaaS, and everything else is a service. There's only one difference. They only indicate one difference between these two, and that's at the runtime level. Unfortunately, that's a little misleading about what really the difference between container as a service and platform as a service is, though. So let's just talk to the runtime layer, first of all. What exactly is in it? You have a root file system, you have middleware, and various other integration dependencies along with your application and such that go on top. And let's take an example of how this is done in the container as a service world. You've got all your application code, you've got a whole bunch of binaries and libraries delivered from who knows where, and you have your OS image, and the developer drops you a container. Then you run that on your particular Kubernetes system. And what happens when you have a security issue? Well, first of all, at what layer is the security issue, and who's going to be responsible for it? How many people have their developers actually paying attention to CVEs in their OS? So one major difference between the platform as a service focus on application development and container as a service is that you actually can separate these concerns. Now here I'm only just talking about application pushing and the runtime portion, where the developer controls simply the application code. The runtime is controlled by a completely different team, and the OS image by yet another team in what you probably would find as the separation of responsibilities you already have in your enterprise. But let's look a little bit more at the Cloud Foundry high-level architecture. You know, we talked runtime, but you'll notice there's routing in there. There's a login service, which has a lot of extra features on it. There's entire metrics logging backends so that all of your applications are logged in a consistent manner. And this is all auditable by your security teams. There's also the Open Service Broker APIs. People might be familiar with the Open Service Broker API as it ties to Kubernetes as well. That's actually borrowed from Cloud Foundry and is now open and being used by multiple other projects. So it's sort of a misnomer when you see those charts up and they just show, oh, it's just this runtime difference that they add on top. Actually, a platform as a service, you're doing a lot more that focuses on the developer experience. That said, you do see there's a little bit of an overlap in container scheduling and application execution. So Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes, the way it really is best to be looked at. You can get the best of both worlds. Basically, run your container native applications in Cloud Foundry, more complex workloads in Kubernetes. And the general problem that people have, and you know, I've seen this mentioned or at some other talks already at this conference, but I have to run them separately, right? You can't run Cloud Foundry with Kubernetes. That's not actually true. So SUSE has an open source project, SCF, you find it at SUSE, GitHub. It's 100% open source. It's ready to run. It's basically a refactoring of Cloud Foundry that is fully containerized. So you don't have to worry about the very large VM-based Cloud Foundries of the past, you can really meld the two together and have the full developer experience on top of the Kubernetes production-grade orchestration. What's it look like? Of course, you have to have some chart. You basically get to run your workloads. So here, it's a bit of that application architecture. We're just basically saying, oh, here it is running on top of, you pick your Kubernetes distribution. SUSE CaaS platform is one, but you can also run this on AKS, EKS, GKE, or whatever other Kubernetes you have in-house, as long as it's Kubernetes 1.7 or greater and you have persistent volume storage. And that's pretty much the summary there is there's a lot to say about Kubernetes for being production grade, providing you a lot of services and data and everything. But that's really focused on the operator level. Cloud Foundry has a lot of extra value add, which I'd be happy to talk about those significant differences that provide significant developer experience on top. And you can bring them all peacefully together.